I have a curiosity, a genuine curiosity about what it is that makes us sabotage our own lives. This would include doing things like, you know, pushing things to the last minute, um, bringing conflict into our lives. Getting involved in conflict and the conflict of others, creating conflict out of thin air. These are just a few minor examples, maybe broad examples, but these are just it's by no means a comprehensive list, right? I'm curious about what it is that makes us do this stuff. Sabotage our own lives, and I think I have an idea of why that is. Um, I meant to stop using the word think. I strongly believe that, and I also don't want to. I, side note, I have resolved to minimize, if not eliminate, my use of the words think and no. These are two extremes on opposite sides. I prefer to say I believe when I can, when it's possible, and when I can do it. I believe that this tendency that we have towards chaos, which is what I'm referring to, really a tendency, an inclination towards chaos. This tendency comes from, among other things, what pops up in my head is boredom. We seek thrills and we seek excitement, and as human beings, we I think all living beings are plagued by this. We run from boredom. We have a problem with it. Um, we are thrill seekers. We want excitement in our lives. We want excitement until it gets too exciting, until our fear response kicks in, and we start running back, and then we go back, and do the whole thing over again. We're pretty stupid that way sometimes. We go after the excitement, we go after the thrills, and I'll try to keep this one short. Essentially, we uh, let me define success. As I define it, real quick before I continue, because everybody defines success for themselves. There's one nice little tidbit of knowledge, what I believe to be knowledge. We all define success for ourselves, and to me, and I'm sure to a lot of other people, success um, cannot be defined without peace. There's an element of peace, among other things like simplicity and what have you, but peace for sure. And peace, while it's very nice, a lot of people would consider it a boring proposition, and and peace can be boring. It does carry boredom with it. It's boredom is following along, not too far behind, and that's probably inevitable. So success, no matter how you define it, I think for yourself. I believe. Um, the way I define it, it carries that element of peace. I believe the way anybody would define it or should define it, it involves peace. You're not successful if you're living in chaos or conflict. So, by extension, by definition, success is generally, true success is going to be boring, and so we're going to run from it. This is why we sabotage ourselves, why we sabotage our own lives. And I don't want to extend this too much, but I might just a little bit if you'll forgive me. This is why we sabotage our own lives. We do it for the thrill of it. We get we get bored by success, by the peace that comes with it. It becomes tedious, and I want to add another side note. I'll try not to make it too long, but if we have no problem sabotaging our own lives, or at least if we can bring ourselves to do that. Give me a second. If we can bring ourselves to sabotage, even perhaps attempt to destroy our own lives at times, if we can bring ourselves to do that, is it not a whole lot easier to do that to others? And usually that's what happens, those people that you see going after others, persecuting others, making the lives of other people difficult, playing mind games with them. Those people have already done substantial damage to their own lives. So anything they do to others is basically, it's collateral damage, and in their head they're thinking, well, might as well, their lives are, their lives are already in shambles, their own lives. So any blowback that's going to come from what they do to other people, which generally, I hate to say it, but generally they get away with a lot with few consequences. Not always, but anyhow, the mindset is, what's the worst that could happen, right? My life is already in shambles. Even if I don't want to accept it or admit it, or if I'm even aware of it, or maybe I'm not even aware of it. So anything I do to somebody else, what's the worst they can do to me in return? That's the mindset. In a nutshell, that is the mindset of people who fuck with others. It's very masochistic, very sadist, of course. And the idea is, what are you going to do to me in retaliation that essentially I haven't already done to myself, or hasn't already been done to me, or hasn't already happened to me? That's a side note. Kind of a little bit off topic from what I originally meant to talk about, but I thought it was important to bring up, and with that, I leave you for now.